Hi, this is Dimensional Walking, and I'm Rainbow. And with today's video, what I want to do is talk to you about a topic that I was going to do a video on, but I decided not to. So, what this article is called is the milieu and correlation between doppelgangers, twins, and clones. This topic was important to me when I had this revelation when I was in my 40s, actually when I hit 40, of a possibility of people being cloned on a scale unimaginable. And I had experiences when I was a child on the west side of Albuquerque, New Mexico, that I could never understand because my dad was a softball coach. And what he would do is we would have games that we would go with him to on the weekends. And I was petrified of the west side. And when I hit 40, memories came back to me where I was actually being taken to the west side out of school during the daytime. So I went to a Catholic school when I was 6. And so something was happening. We were being taken out by military buses, and different things were done, different kinds of classes and trainings and things like that. But I had a fear of the west side beyond anything that was sane. And so once these memories came back to me, I finally understood why I was so afraid of the west side of Albuquerque. From that, this article came about because I had this idea, like I stated, that we're being cloned. And so I think that some of the children and I were taken to the west side, and some children were taken actually. And I don't know whatever happened to them. I don't remember seeing them after an experience that I had on the west side, where we were taken and we were shown spacecrafts, and some of the children were taken into these spacecraft, and I never saw them again after that. And that was probably traumatizing as well. So from all of that, this article came about. So let's just kind of see where I went with this article and what you might think. This is in the February issue of Paranormal Underground, just so you can see it, 2018. So here we go. The milieu and correlation between doppelgangers, twins, and clones. Sometimes reality and the truth of our perceptions collide, and what we are left with is fragments, a semblance of both immersed into one another. A dip in a pool can send off shock waves, alerting anything close by that we are near, yet our very movement changes the still waters of their existence. So it is with this thought of the constant converge and diverge of life that I often wonder the what if between doppelgangers, twins, and clones. Have you ever wondered how they are all different from each other? Perhaps not by much, but enough to establish the definitive and unique peculiarities between them. Still, these peculiarities are the comparable qualities that connect them to each other. The question is, how are they defined by society? The dubious shadows that are created within the mind sometimes spill out into the transparent canvas of life, bringing its foreboding sentiments directly into our daily lives. Do dreams that wander in calling themselves memories play a role in discovering the meaning of any said disclosure, or are they remnants of jumbled recollections of daily life? Lurking in the midst of any imagination is the conspiracy yarn that makes seeing double a scary thing. Funny how we look to Hollywood to bring us our fears, desires, and hidden flights of the imagination directly into our living rooms. What is intended as entertainment for the masses can sometimes include hints or clues into the reality that is beyond comprehension. Society can become its own perverted ambassador because we believe what is told to us within the numerous scripts of the decadence and revulsion. Maybe, just maybe, this is where the truth lies, hidden in a labyrinth of fictitious truths called the unmitigated and disreputable Pandora's Box. Is this where doppelgangers, twins, and clones thrive? Or is this an attempt at showing elements of transgressions revealed? But by whom? Sometimes Pandora's box can look a lot like the rabbit hole. They both can become an overlooked paradox because they both offer similar temptations. Can the mirror image of ourselves recognize the descriptive familiarity within the words doppelgangers, twins, and clones? I know my own reflection looking back at me is, for all intents and purposes, me. Yet sometimes if I look too close at my own reflection, she becomes a blur. Doppelgangers. Years ago, I heard the word doppelganger, and I remember thinking it was just another weird word for twin. There have been numerous movies done on this frightening, almost beguiling word. Its definitive means, and its definition means an apparition or double of a living person. Do doppelgangers know they are doppelgangers, or do they exist like us, thinking they are the original design for their soul? Are they us in spirit form, simply our higher selves, only better, wiser, and indomitable? Alas, the question must be asked, are they immoral, seeking to take our identity into theirs, wiping out our very existence, making us an extension into nothingness? If there are two, usually one of the pair is more dominant than the other. Which would you be? Interestingly enough, reality or truth acquired in science can hide itself within the confines of science fiction, because there is room to maneuver and experiment within each person's reaction, emotions, and phobias. A trickle of the truth can be easier to swallow than a deluge of reality. For instance, the thought of a hidden, almost monster-like double of ourselves can create quite the stir inside us. It could be pretty terrifying. If we are good, does this mean our doppelganger must be bad? Some people fear their doppelganger is their comeuppance or deserved retribution for a mendacious and unscrupulous life. On the back burner of a petulant mind, exhausted by fear, a question lingers, making itself home like an unwelcoming ghost or guest. If the existence of a person could cease to exist, who would know the better? Included in this quandary is the ruminating and foreboding feeling that family and friends wouldn't suspect or know that the switch had been made. In fact, here it is in science fiction form, a creative movie plot. Another lookalike portrays a targeted person and their characteristics to perfection. The blood-curdling realization for the victim would be watching themselves being replaced, yet isolated and hopelessly doomed from any existence. Life goes on without them. The bottom line here is, if society knew something could take its place without any hesitation, would that not be a terror beyond words? The unsettling word doppelganger origin is German and hints of various portents of doom meant for any individual who sees themselves either at a distance or perhaps in obscure circumstances. Folklore says it can be a sign of illness or imminent death. An interesting example of a doppelganger in the 19th century is Emily, and I'm probably not saying her name right, Sagee, Sagee, who lived in France. She was a school teacher at an exclusive girls' school called Pensionnat van Nieuwek, and I'm not even going to say this word. I'm going to spell it out for you. Pensionat, van and Nieuwelk, Neuwelke. There were supposedly 13 students who saw her doppelganger appear right beside her as she was writing on a blackboard. It copied her every move, but held no chalk. Emily stated herself that she never saw her doppelganger, but whenever it did appear, she felt drained of energy, and even her physical color went pale, a sign that it was near. I must ask then, in this case, was her doppelganger dangerous? Could it have been a distant twin or part of her soul that couldn't be contained? That is the question I wonder about. What is a doppelganger? Is it? Your guess is as good as mine. So now I have something on twins. A twin could be considered a doppelganger of its sibling because in many instances, people use the two words to describe one or the other. The obvious difference between the two phrases is that twins are the flesh and blood consequence of a childbearing, whereas doppelgangers seem to come from the ethereal world of the unknown. Twin telepathy calls upon a different understanding regarding their unique and shared relationships because of their intertwined supernatural abilities that have intrigued even the upper echelon of various medical fields. It has to be mentioned that one of the darker medical affiliations with twins is Joseph Mengele. In Auschwitz, his main study was twins, even though he carried out a variety of projects with other groups. Mengele believed identical twins, which shared the same ovum, could possess the same psychological characteristics and habits. Let's just say ethics went out the window because he had hundreds of twins at his whim and disposal. And I'm going to say disposal. An inmate doctor at Auschwitz stated that Mengele seemed to be something like the double man, who demonstrated human feelings that commanded obedience and order. Perhaps he was dealing with his own interpersonal doppelganger or envied the assumed abilities the twins seemed to share with each other. Nevertheless, death's door was always close by for many of the twins. Mengele had little patience when it came to his bizarre experiments, and unfortunately for those around him, he showed very little humility and compassion. This leads me to wonder what the difference would be between Mengele and a clone. Their characteristics seem to be similar because both would be prone to serving a higher purpose without thinking about the consequences of the present. Who knows? Now let's get into clones. More than 70 movies have been made around the concept of a clone, the various scripts and plots created to intrigue and scare the masses. But I also think they were all vehicles to get people used to the clone idea. Stem cells are another way to create a mainstream push so that the idea of a clone becomes not only accepted, but slowly integrates itself into daily life without anyone noticing. The idea of cloning seems science fiction to a certain degree, but there are projects in the dark arenas that have been playing around with this very idea for years. The end results are gray areas of a denied truth. Let us glide down another tunnel within the rabbit hole that seems less traveled. Let's talk about mind control for a minute. Mind control has become one of the leading radio show topics since super soldiers and whistleblowers have come forth claiming they are victims of various mind control methods. What would it take to make mind control a thing of the past? Would it be aliens coming down from hidden and cloaked spaceships, or bursting forth from the underground in gravity-defying vehicles with ray guns directed at surface dwellers? Well, that scenario, or I should say type of movie, has been done numerous times. So perhaps because the general public are now aware of these illicit schemes, maybe those in the know had to change their tune and figure out another way to catch us off guard. Perhaps this is where clones come in. They do as they're told, they don't complain, and they get the job done. Mind control can be a bit messy because breaking another person's will can be time consuming and the end results aren't always feasible. How many clones can be made of one so-called person? Your guess is as good as mine, but if this can be done, I am sure they can make a spare and possibly a third in reserve. So the obvious questions here are, where does this place us as human beings? And oddly enough, if clones exist, where do they keep the clones in reserve? Having a possible doppelganger is scary enough, but if there was another clone of me, how would that work? Am I the blueprint for the clone, or would it be called an avatar? Would we think alike, have the same habits and mannerisms, yet to be different enough to exist in the same reality? I know, so many questions, but clones seem to be a part of the Star Wars or Blade Runner genre. Maybe this is where the idea of clones was first placed into society's subconscious, so that the very idea wouldn't cause a panic. Today, clones are considered avant-garde, a part of today's idealism for progress and future proactive solutions to war and aggression, the industrial complex, space, and whatever else you can think of. So which of the three terms makes the most sense in regards to the future endeavors in science or socio-political or economic success schemes? The ripples of each word leaves a slightly different mark on the psyche for most people. With technology changing faster than we can keep up, it seems to me that the best way for anyone to meet their doppelganger, imaginary twin, or sci-fi clone is to forget their humanity and immerse themselves into the very gadgets that will eventually take over their lives. A scary movie can be a prelude into the darkest fears, but then we can always walk away from a theater or a video store knowing reality as we know it awaits us unchanged. Obviously, for most people, the very reality in which they live is defined by comfort, accessibility, and consistent and unchanged routines and schedules. I have to ask, would this not be the perfect strategy in creating a society that depends on their alter egos and detailed profiles for access to family and community interactions without ever leaving the house. Computers. The doppelganger twins and clones of society can be easily accessed at the click of any keyboard or button. Years from now, we may be living in a scary and shadowy world without ever having to leave our homes. And, we kind of went through that with everybody having to stay home for many months, during the pandemic. So we kind of experienced that a little bit. Perhaps we are the creatures of our own Pandora's box, and the rabbit hole we travel down is a computer screen that ties us into the multi-layered sites and videos promoting vices and equal desires for conquest with a self-made character that has superhuman strength and mind-altering abilities. We can be checked up on or watched because everything that is related to any community-oriented groups or chat rooms requires us all to create a password and sign in to participate in the matrix. What if we gave away willingly our individuality for a new world conformity without ever knowing the better? The doppelganger twin or clone of our making is already beyond our doorstep and in our homes, comfortably waiting for a click of a button. The surprise attack has already begun, and all it took was easy access into multiple networks that not only encourages alter egos, but insists upon them to gain entry. Ultimately, we have become the lead players in our own scary movie. Your doppelganger twins or clones welcome you. So this is an article that I wrote, and is this something that came to my mind, especially with new technology? What does it take really to access anybody's mind anymore? What is it about doppelgangers, the ethereal world? Is there really a veil anymore? How connected are we to ourselves? How much have we given away to technology? And the list goes on. So just food for thought. That Michael and I know what you think. You can comment in down below, or you can email us at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you are doing well. And until the next video, have a blessed day and take care.